Attached to the description of this video, you should see a link where you can be able to download the starter file for this project, and also the complete project will be available at the end of this lecture. Alright, so now the concepts, we're going to use the concept that we've learned so far, use effect, use state, and we might use props. I don't think we're going to use props, but at least the concept that we've learned so far, we're going to use it to build this application. So the concept is when we click start, we want to start our timer, so it keeps counting up and up and up. And once we click start, we should be able to see pause. Then if we click pause, then the timer should stop. Then we can be able to now click reset to reset our timer back to 0, and also we should be able to now pause our timer. Alright, so now let's see how we're going to devise our plan. Alright, so let's give this a shot. So the first thing we need to do is to make sure we have our hooks ready to play. So we need to use state and use effect from React. And now we need to make sure that our state, so let's call it counter, and we set counter. That's going to be the first one, so we say use state and we're going to set it to 0. Now the next one that we need is our our state manager. Like if is it paused or if it's playing. So we can call this I don't know, I came up with a name. Let's just call it playing, and we say set playing, and by default it's gonna be false, so use state false. And now we need to have our function that runs timer, so we say run timer is equal to our function, and we need to have use effect, and we need our use effect to run whenever timer changes. Let's see, whenever counter changes and whenever playing changes. Alright, so now let's call run timer over here, and we could also plug this in, so we'll have our counter. So once we save this now and go back, nothing changes, right? So the idea is when we click on start, we need to now start our timer. Okay, so let's see how we can devise this plan. So we want to say if playing is set to true, then we can say set timeout every 1 second, and we want to set counter to counter +1. Now we can't say counter plus plus because we can't edit a state directly. Okay, so we say counter +1. Alright, so let's save that. And this also requires a hook called run timer. So I'm not ready to show you guys that right now. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to move this function, because that's what this is requiring. But we haven't used that function within use effect. So once we save that now, nothing should work, right? So let's change this to true, and let's reload, and you can see our timer is working, right? So you can see you get the point of how our application will run. So let's go back and set this back to false, and our timer should be back to 0. Okay, cool. So now we want to, when we click on start, we want to change it to we want to set our playing to true. When we click on pause, we want to set our playing to false. So we can do that with just one. We can do that with one line of code. Okay, so let's just say on change. Sorry, not on change, on click, because this is a button. On click, we want to have the event. I don't think we actually need the event, but just for convention's sake, let's just pass in the event. And now we want to set playing to the opposite of playing. So that means if it's true, we set it to false. If it's false, it set it to true. So that way we can be able to toggle between on and off. And also we can just use the opportunity to do this. And once encounter, can use the template literal. So if playing, then we want to set this to, if it's playing, then we want to set it to pause. I also want to set it to start. Alright, so let's see. So let's click on start, and our timer is running. Let's click on pause, and okay, so that was an issue, but at least it's working. So let's click on start, and it's working. Let's click on pause, and it runs once. So before we go on, I forgot to show you this in the last lecture when we looked at use effect. So that issue came up because of we had our component was still, our use effect was still trying to run. Then we changed it, if I'm to put it that way. We interrupted the play of our use effect. So when we click on start, you can see it's still working. And once you click on pause, it doesn't pause immediately. All right. So what we can do, we can have a cleanup function, and the cleanup function is just to return a function that will clean up our use effect. So what we want to do is to return a function. Actually, we should do it on top of here. So we can say const timer is equal to. Now this doesn't always work, but at least for this case, it should work. So what we need to do is just clear timeout, and we pass in our timer. Alright, so once we save these, and I'm just going to give it a quick reload, and let's click on start, and once we click on pause, we still have that glitch, but it still works fine. Alright, so remember the component needs to, it doesn't change immediately, but at least you get a point of how the application should work. So we can click on play. In fact, instead of calling it play, and you can see it's working. It's working. When we now pause, our timer has been paused. So now let's work on the case of reset. So let's reset our timer. So the way we can do it is on click, and what we need to do is perform two things. So first of all, we need to pause. We need to stop the timer, and then we need to set the value of counter to 0. So let's do that. Let's set counter equal to 0 and set playing. Now this time we don't need to set it to the opposite. We want to set it to false directly. So once we do this, and our timer is okay, it's paused. So let's play, and it's working. It's working. Let's reset our timer, and that didn't work. Let's reset again. I don't know why it had to do that twice. Maybe we'll just move this up a bit, and maybe I'll just get rid of this for now. Get rid of these, say that, and let's reload. Let's play. Let's reset. Okay. Apparently we had to click reset twice. I don't know why that was an issue. Let's see what is actually going on. Why is that not working immediately? Set counter equal to, well, we still had the previous snapshot of counter, and that was an issue. So if you can use set interval. Let's try set interval. I see no reason why we should need one over the other, but let's see. yeah, that was why I didn't want to use set interval. It glitches. So set timeout works fine. And I'll just plug back this in, and I'll just say const timer equal to that. All right. So if you want, we could also move this up a bit and move this down. Move this down. So if playing it down, that's when you can do this. But it's just up to you. You can do whatever you want. You can play this and it plays. We can pause it and it pauses. We can also reset, and that resets. Okay, so that's gonna be it for these short projects. Remember, I'm gonna clean it up and also zip it for you. So the starter and the end. So in case you just want to do this on your own and just play around with it. Alright, so that's gonna be it for this lecture. In the next lecture, we're gonna look at more advanced topics on React, and I hope you're really excited. Alright, so let's see each other in the next one.